The Curses and the Covenants, a History Weaver Mystery, Book 2, by Connie Worden. Read by the author. Chapter 26. News of Julia's death wasn't released until after school hours the next day, so school was still on. I somehow got through the day on autopilot, teaching my classes while sitting on the awful secret I didn't feel free to speak about. I had writing club after school, and knowing that Julia's death was on the verge of being reported, and the 4 girls of my writers group to whom I'd grown close would need to process the death of their classmate, I told them we wouldn't be doing any writing that day, and I broke the news to them about Julia. Coral's eyes grew wide. "That ravine under the old stone bridge, the one in the woods around our place, that's where she was found?" "Yes, but don't feel responsible in any way, Coral. It was close to your place. But there's nothing you could have done to prevent Julia's death." I didn't know if Coral was reproaching herself in some way, as we tend to do after a tragedy in close proximity, but I wanted to be sure she wasn't. "I know, I wouldn't think that. It's just weird, though. It's a weird place. Too many mysteries about it. That old mine where we found the pieces of furniture. Then there's that pile of stones there that my brother Will saw, and our friend Georgie noticed, too. That was why she found the mine entrance in the first place. I wonder why Julia was found there. She must have been there before to know about the old bridge. I wonder if she made that footprint in the mine that we've been wondering about since then." "Wait. Back up. What did you just say? Say that again. Something about a pile of stones?" "Yeah, Georgie mentioned it when she was telling us her story after everything went down, and I've seen it too. I don't know why it's there." I didn't tell the girls about the body under the pile of stones. But the plot was definitely thickening up nicely. I wondered if it would get too thick to plumb its depths. Would anyone ever know the truth about Julia and why she'd done what it seemed she had done? And how she knew about the body under the pile of stones? At least the police should get some answers about the human remains under the pile of stones if the dental records turned anything up. But would we ever know how Julia knew about them? Or how they'd come to be there in the first place? I dreaded it, but I knew I had to get it over with. I had to pay a visit to the Fairchilds. I decided that at least a day for them to process in private would be expected. But a couple days after my phone call with Pete, I knew I'd better get it over with. Besides the normal awkwardness of intruding on someone's grief, and having nothing helpful to say or do, I had the added complication of struggling with guilt feelings. Should I say anything to her parents about my last conversation with Julia? It certainly was relevant to the question of how she died. My last impression of her was that she was in mental anguish. I'd have to tell the RCMP sooner or later, but I decided against saying anything to her parents about it at that juncture. Just the usual meaningless platitudes would have to do for the moment. At least I could take them a casserole or some baking. Making food would give me something to do with school cancelled, as it had been since the news about Julia broke. In a school our size, the death of a student was a very big deal. There were several cars already in the driveway and parked along the road by the Fairchild's house when I arrived. At least it wouldn't be just the family and I. I was surprised to notice one of the cars was Larry's. I wouldn't have thought him to be particularly close to the family. Someone I didn't know let me in the door, but then I recognized some of the other faces around the sitting room, some of them from the Fairchild's dinner party. I nodded a greeting to Larry sitting on the couch in the front room. Tamara stepped forward to greet me, barely holding it together, but managing an unconvincing smile under the blotchy redness of long hours of crying. She was almost unrecognizable without her usual careful and tasteful makeup. I was a little shocked at the difference. "I am so sorry, Tamara," I told her, barely keeping my tears in check myself. I handed her the casserole and card. "You're probably inundated with meals right now, but this one can go in the freezer. I don't need the pan back." "Thank you, Angie," she said, taking my offerings out of my hand. "I'm sorry my husband isn't here to see our visitors. He hasn't been sleeping at night, so he's lying down right now. We do appreciate your support. all the way along. I know you did the very best you could. It actually meant a lot to Julia, even if she couldn't show her gratitude." I swallowed hard. Could that possibly be true? I hadn't believed Tamara the last time she'd intimated Julia's fondness for me. But this wasn't a time for telling polite lies. Why would she be keeping up the fiction if it was one? Maybe I had had more influence over Julia than I'd imagined, for all the good it had done. "I'm just so sorry I wasn't able to be more help to her," I said, my voice breaking. "But if there's anything I can do for you now." Tamara nodded. "There is something." "Oh, good. Anything." "Wait here, I'll be right back." Tamara left the room with her hands full of the casserole in the foil pan and came back in a few minutes with a book instead of the casserole. At first glance, it looked like the kind of book a teenage girl would have as a journal. "It's Julia's. She wrote in it all the time. I don't think she had any other outlet. I've been trying to read it to see if there's anything in it that I should tell the police about. Anything relevant, I mean. I haven't been able to get very far." Her face crumpled in, but she managed to get the words out in a voice strained with tears. "Would you be able to read it through for me? Let me know if there's anything I should know or that the police should. I can't even make sense of what I read. She talked to you. I feel like you understood her better. Maybe you'd be able to decipher what she was trying to say better than I could." I doubted it. Nothing in me wanted to take the book out of Tamara's hands and agree to take charge of it. But I couldn't refuse. Maybe I could turn it right over to the police. They would surely want to see it. "It's a terrible thing to admit that you didn't know your own daughter," Tamara said, her voice rising to a wail. A nearby friend wrapped her arms around the thin, shaking shoulders. "I will do my best, Tamara. I'll let you know what I find in here. Maybe there will be something helpful." I made my excuses about not wanting to intrude and needing to get back to Ma, and made my escape. Sarah called and wanted to come over. Another visit I dreaded, but another task that had to be faced. With her flair for it, I'd expected Sarah to dramatize, but she was dry-eyed and subdued, though pale. She had the look of someone who wasn't quite present. Several times I had to repeat a sentence before she heard it. We sat at Ma's kitchen table and drank mugs of tea. "It's hitting you hard," I stated matter-of-factly. "I've never lost a client before," she said. "Were you and Julia close?" She made a non-committal gesture. "In a way. I've known her for years, worked with her for a couple. She was difficult, of course, but I did care. I wanted to help. I just didn't know how." It seemed we were feeling the same thing. Shock and helplessness, and maybe some guilt. Julia's journal was sitting on the kitchen table where I'd dropped it when I came in the door. I hadn't been motivated to move it or get started reading it. "What's this?" Sarah asked, pointing to it. "Julia's journal. Why do you have it?" "Her mom wants me to read it, see if I can find anything helpful." "Shouldn't it be turned over to the police?" "It will be. Tamara just wanted me to have a look at it first and see if I could make any sense of it. She thought I might be able to help the police with it, seeing I knew Julia better than they did." "That seems a little unorthodox," Sarah said, raising her eyebrows. "Well, yeah, but hey, I'd just offered to help in any way I could, so I didn't like to refuse the request." Sarah didn't bother to answer. She stared out the window while her tea went cold. "Anyway, I should probably go. I'm planning to drop around to the Fairchilds still. I just wanted to talk to you first, see if you knew anything more," she said at last. "Not a thing that you don't know. I'm sure you heard the staff sergeant at the press conference talk about the human remains found at the bottom of the ravine. I had a heads up on it, but I didn't know anything about it that wasn't told at the press conference. Anyway, if I get any more information, I'll tell you, and you do the same for me, okay?" Sarah said. "I'm sure I won't hear anything that's not public knowledge." "Well, with you and Pete seeing each other socially sometimes, you might." "You might see more of them than I do," I said, admitting to myself that I was fishing for information that had nothing to do with the case. Sarah tossed her hair back over her shoulder. I do plan to see Pete tonight, but we probably won't talk about work. There. I'd got my information, and it served me right for fishing for it. Somehow, I think it will come up. No, we have a deal that we don't talk about our cases unless it's a work thing. Okay. Well, I still doubt I'll hear anything you don't hear. Sarah left her half a mug of cold tea on the table and made her exit.